Hello and welcome, I am Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Japan has recorded a tsunami of 1.3 meters according to the Japanese broadcasting company. This comes after a magnitude 8.8 earthquake struck off the east coast of Russia, leading to tsunami warnings across several regions. France and 14 other Western countries have urged the world to recognize the Palestinian state in a renewed push for the two-state solution. The call comes following a major conference in New York backing Palestinian statehood amid growing global pressure. US President Trump claims British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's move to recognize Palestine will reward Hamas. President Trump also says he did not discuss this plan with Starmer when both the leaders met in Scotland last week. Ukraine says that 3 soldiers have died after a Russian strike on a training camp in the country. It comes as Trump confirms that Russia has 10 days before sanctions will be imposed and this progress is made on the war in Ukraine. US officials say that Donald Trump will have the final call on a truce extension in the trade tensions with China. US Secretary Scott Bessent says both nations will continue talks ahead of a deadline of August the 12th. Donald Trump says the Wall Street Journal and its owner Rupert Murdoch want to settle a defamation lawsuit over an article relating to Trump's connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Meanwhile, Trump has spoken about a fallout with the late financier. Sean Diddy Combs is seeking release on a $50 million bond after being found not guilty on the most severe of his charges in his sex trafficking trial. Diddy was found guilty on 2 charges of transportation to engage in prostitution. The United Nations has named Lashkar-e-Taiba and its proxy, the Resistance Front, in connection with the deadly Pahalgam terror attack. The report links TRF to the attack, reportedly affirming India's claim that it was backed by Pakistan-based groups. Now we start our hour in Russia. A powerful 8.8 magnitude earthquake has struck off Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, unleashing tsunami waves across the Pacific. Russian state TV aired dramatic footage of waves sweeping through Severodvinsk, destroying buildings and flooding a local fishing plant. Officials declared a state of emergency as the entire town was evacuated. Japan and Hawaii have also felt the impact. Officials confirm 1.3-meter waves have struck both nations' coastlines, triggering alerts and evacuations with sirens blaring across Hawaii. Now in Hawaii, Governor Josh Green says no wave of consequence has yet passed the Big Island, but all commercial harbours have been closed and flights in and out of Maui are cancelled. A 3-foot tsunami was recorded in Hanalei, with warnings of waves up to 6 feet potentially hitting Kauai. Here's his official announcement.
This is a very serious event. We have Black Hawks activated. We have high water vehicles ready to go. So we will be able to rescue people, but please do not put yourself in harm's way. Make sure you actually evacuate right now. It will not just hit some parts of the island, it should probably spread around the islands. And so you can expect waves everywhere, provided that that tsunami does hit as we expect. This is about 3 feet, okay? But a wave of water, that means it can move cars, it will throw fences around. If it hits, it can dislodge trees. That's why you just can't be out there. The impact is at great speed. Any structure that gets loose and strikes an individual could take them out. And people can drown quite easily with the force of that kind of wave. It's a different beast altogether. And of course, if it gets much larger, they do anticipate it could be larger. That's why they get multiple measurements. It's even more dangerous, even more forceful. Houses will be damaged. There will be debris all over the place if we do get a full tsunami. This is not, we pray, going to be anywhere near like that tragic tsunami in 1960. And we'll give updated measurements as soon as we hear specifically what the French frigate.
The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center says waves are now impacting Hawaii's shores and urges immediate precautions to protect life and property. Meanwhile, evacuations are also underway in Ecuador's Galapagos Islands. Peru, Ecuador and Mexico have also issued the same warnings. The Pacific region remains on high alert. We're now joined by our guest, who's Alexei Zakharov. He's a fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Thank you very much, Alexei, for joining us on the program. Alexei, the immediate region who was first affected by this was the east of Russia. How prepared was that area in particular for a quake of this magnitude?
Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I mean, the most affected regions are located in the far east of Russia. These are the Kamchatka Peninsula and Sakhalin Island. Actually, earthquakes are quite common for this region due to, geological activity there. These regions are prone to earthquakes. So the earthquakes of smaller magnitudes occur quite often in the region. And I think that largely they were prepared for something like that. Also, if we listen to specialists, they say that judging by the magnitude, the consequences of the earthquake could have been worse. So the implications that were felt by the residents of this region and by the different buildings in the region, they were not so strong as they could have been.
Yes, Alexei, we've also seen these tsunami waves hit Japan and Hawaii, as we've just heard. How interconnected is the seismic activity along the Pacific Rim? And should we expect further danger from aftershocks or ripple effects?
From what I heard, the earthquake provoked a series of tsunamis across the region. And actually, aftershocks may be still there during weeks ahead. It may take place even for several months. Of course, the magnitude of these aftershocks will be smaller, but still the citizens, the residents of this region, they are advised to be on high alert and to keep safe. So some people who have evacuated from their houses, they are kind of now scared to go back, and they say that they will prefer to stay in some camps, at least for some days.
Yes. Apologies. How likely is Moscow likely to handle the rebuilding and compensation efforts? Obviously, the east of Russia is remote. We have areas like the Severo-Kurilisk. Do you think this could strain federal resources or not so much?
I think it will be the responsibility of regional authorities. The governors of the regions already promised all the assistance to the people. They promised that they would assist in making some reconstruction works, in providing the necessary material where they stayed. So luckily they had enough time for action. Also, some tourists found themselves on the boats during the tsunami, but as you rightly mentioned, it was not so hard, so their vessels were not affected. They could just shoot the videos and share the kind of magnitude of the disaster. It was hitting, the waves were hitting some mountains, then the coastline, but luckily the people survived.
Yes, Alexei Zakharov, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Pleasure to get your insight. We now move on. President Donald Trump has said he did not discuss Britain's plan to recognise a Palestinian state during his recent meeting with the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Scotland. This comes despite Starmer's announcement that the UK could officially back Palestinian statehood at the United Nations General Assembly in September. Speaking aboard Air Force One, US President Trump revealed the following.
Discussed it, surprisingly. It was never really discussed. Maybe a little bit at the news conference, but he was sort of discussing it with you. We never did discuss it, and we have no view on that. We're going to get a lot of money to the area so they can get some food. He's going to also. Well, you could make the case that you're rewarding people, that, you know, you're rewarding Hamas if you do that, and I don't think they should be rewarded. So I'm not in that camp, to be honest.
He also revealed that the US has sent food aid for relief in Gaza, but stressed that he wants to ensure it is used wisely and distributed properly. We are covering Donald Trump's statements on the ongoing Gaza war. This follows Israel's Prime Minister's statements that say the UK's plans to recognise a Palestinian state in September if Israel does not announce a ceasefire are a reward for Hamas. As you can see, Donald Trump there echoing the statement of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The British Prime Minister, of course, Keir Starmer, has announced that along with France, the UK would recognise a Palestinian state at the United Nations in September if no progression is made towards a ceasefire and aid is continued throughout the region. Around 140 countries formally recognise a Palestinian state. Last week, France also pledged to do so, making it the first country in the G7 to do that. The UK has now said it will join France in doing so if Israel does not make progress towards a ceasefire and the humanitarian situation improves. It comes as a UN-backed food security body said the Gaza Strip is the worst case of famine that is currently playing out there. Around 100 aid lorries crossed into Gaza yesterday. However, many aid organizations and humanitarian foundations are saying that this is not enough and they need a constant flow of 500 to 600 lorries every single day to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Israel, of course, does not allow international news organizations into the Gaza Strip. And so it's very, very hard to get this information, which leaves many news outlets, news organizations, news agencies using Palestinian journalists, independent Palestinian journalists in the Gaza Strip to get this information out. We're just reiterating that the President Donald Trump has echoed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's statements that recognizing a Palestinian state, which the UK has said it's going to do, is a reward to Hamas. Now we move over to Europe. The Ukrainian army says at least 3 soldiers were killed and 18 were wounded in a Russian strike on a military training camp. This comes after deadly airstrikes on a prison and hospital in southeastern Ukraine on Tuesday, which claimed 19 lives, including a pregnant woman and over a dozen inmates. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Moscow of deliberately targeting civilians and offered condolences to the victims' families. The attack comes as pressure mounts from the United States on Russia to end the war. We're now joined by our guest, Joyita Basu, who's the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. She joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Joyita, for joining us on the program. Joyita, we saw a devastating strike yesterday on a Ukrainian prison, killing 18 and injuring many, many others. Given Putin's actions here, he claims to be serious about a ceasefire. What are your thoughts on his mindset, especially with these possible sanctions from the US president coming up?
Well, let's put it this way. Putin has been pushed to a corner. I mean, threats of sanctions do not scare him any longer. Because you see, and I would blame the West in this, because the West has created a situation where Russia doesn't depend on its, I mean, frankly, is no longer affected by its sanctions. They have weaponized the sanctions to an extent that they've pushed Russia into a corner and now finally into China's lap. As a result of which, what is happening is that, you know, if we are talking in terms of we will be getting more sanctions and all, Putin could not care less, because his bread is buttered somewhere else, not with the West any longer. But having said that, his intention is very clear. He wants to ensure that Zelensky must go, that he wants to ensure that there is a regime change in Kyiv, and there is a government that is more amenable, more, I mean, less hostile to Moscow. That is what he is trying for. And he is basically pushing Ukraine to the brink so that, you know, the situation comes where Volodymyr Zelensky is forced to resign. So no, this ceasefire and all that Trump has been talking about, and frankly, Mr. Trump has also been very, you know, I mean, he kind of can't make up his mind whether it is 50 days, after which he will be sanctioning Russia and, you know, everybody who is buying oil from Russia and all that. Frankly, I mean, very few people are now taking Trump seriously. I mean, Putin's action proves that.
Yes, indeed, Joyita. What more do we know about this strike, and also the president's possible reactions to Vladimir Putin? We've seen now the US resuming its military sales to Ukraine. We've also seen, obviously, Donald Trump, while in Scotland, cut down that 50-day deadline for Vladimir Putin to make progress on this war. Where do you think Donald Trump's head is at right now in regards to this conflict?
Well, let's put it this way. Donald Trump is starting to realize that no one listens to him. The world does not listen to him. You know, the problem, this is the problem. He needs to be less, the bullying tactics have to go down. As I said, Russia has nothing to lose because it is going off being underwritten by China completely. Putin is in China's Xi Jinping's pocket. So you think that they will listen to the US? They're scared of the US. Fine, if India stops buying oil from Russia, well, the thing is, it is not going to really affect because China is there. China is bolstering Putin. China is keeping him there. So this also shows how irrelevant Mr. Trump has become when it comes to geopolitics, and particularly when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, think of, didn't he say before he got elected, inside 24 hours I'm going to stop the Russia-Ukraine war? Did not happen. Forget about 24 days. I mean, it is going to be, I think, 240 days very soon. The thing is that, so nothing is happening. The whole point is that Trump does not have the leverage on Russia any longer. So that is why Trump is trying to threaten India and China, but I don't think even that will work.
Yes, Joyita Basu, thank you very much for joining us. You are staying with us to discuss our further updates. US President Donald Trump confirmed on Tuesday that the trade deal between the United States and India has not yet been finalized. This comes despite ongoing negotiations. Trump has been pressing for greater access for American goods in India, particularly in areas like agriculture and manufacturing. India, in turn, has shown interest in expanding its market for US products, but has not yet agreed on the terms. The trade imbalance between the two countries remains a key issue, with the US importing $87.4 billion worth in goods from India in 2024, while only exporting $41.8 billion in return, resulting in a $45.7 billion trade deficit for the United States. Trump's remarks indicate that the clock is ticking as the August the 1st deadline for a potential tariff increase nears. Listen in to what the US president had to say.
Is the deal with India finalized?
No, it's not.
Okay. So what rate are you expecting?
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. But India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do that.
We're once again joined by Joyita Basu. Joyita, why do you think that this trade deal is not yet finalised, especially despite months of negotiations and multiple looming deadlines?
Well, not months of negotiations. There have been 5 rounds of negotiations, and the 6th round got postponed primarily because the Indians made it clear to the Americans that, listen, the gap is too wide. You know, the Gulf is, I mean, it cannot be bridged right now because because if you see the kind of trade deals Mr. Trump has been striking with the certain other countries, the EU trade deal, for example, it's basically strong arm tactics where he takes everything, but the other side does not get anything. All right, this is not a question of rivalry. When you are talking about any FTA, free trade agreement, any trade deal, there has to be give and take, like the way it happened in the India-UK trade deal, which was signed last week. What Trump is looking for is basically a colonization process. Basically, what he is looking at is extortion, and that is something India is not going to agree to. Agriculture sector, when it comes to they want to open up, so that is not going to open up because that is our core sector. We cannot allow our farmers to be hurt. Now, if Mr. Trump does not understand that, because you see, then he will give us 25% tariff from August 1st. So let it be, because Indian government is also, India is also prepared for that, is preparing for that, maybe as a temporary measure, because when you are giving us 24.5%, think of, you know, the number, the kind of generics that we supply to America, the drugs, when your pharmacies will hurt because prices will go up by 25%, that is when the American consumer will be unhappy with Trump.
Donald Trump obviously said there's a $45.7 billion trade deficit with the United States. Donald Trump would believe this is fair. India has not been fair in its trade practices with the United States, and that's why these tariffs are getting imposed. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what fair and unfairness is talking about? Have you checked out the deficit that is there? How many hundreds of billions of dollars that is there with between China and the US? And what did he do with China? He just buckled under pressure in front of China. You know, this is not going to work. This is something Mr. Trump needs to realize, that India is a sovereign country. He is dealing with a civilizational nation. He is not dealing with tin pot countries like Pakistan and small countries like that. When you deal with us, you deal with us like a big country. We are the 4th largest economy in the world now. Mr. Trump cannot bully us into submission. And if there is a deficit, it is the US fault. First, go and fix your deficit with China and then come and show us the red eye.
Yes, Joyita Basu, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. We now move on. Donald Trump said on Tuesday that he severed ties with Jeffrey Epstein after the financier stole young women who worked at his Mar-a-Lago beach club spa. Speaking to reporters on Air Force One, Trump explained that once Epstein took staff members from the club, he ended their friendship. Trump confirmed that the women were young employees hired from the spa, including Virginia Giuffre, who was 16 at the time. Trump's comments come amid renewed pressure on Epstein's associates, including Ghislaine Maxwell, to testify about their involvement in Epstein's crimes. Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence for aiding Epstein's abuse, has said she will testify before Congress, but only if granted immunity or a pardon. Her legal team also requested that questions be provided in advance. The House committee subpoenaed Maxwell to testify on August the 11th, but Chairman James Comer stated that granting immunity was unlikely. As the legal saga continues, Trump has also criticised media reports, including a Wall Street Journal article that linked him to Epstein, calling it fake and suing for defamation. Here's what the US president had to say.
By him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, We don't want you taking our people, whether it was Spa or not Spa. I don't want them taking people. And he was fine, and then not too long after that, he did it again, and I said, out of here.
In a significant vindication of India's stance on terrorism, the United Nations Security Council's monitoring team has, for the first time since 2019, named Lashkar-e-Taiba and its proxy, the Resistance Front, in connection with the deadly April 22nd Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 civilians. The report confirms that TRF not only claimed responsibility for the attack twice, but also released a photograph from the site. It later retracted the claim under pressure. Member states told the UN that the attack was not possible without let support, with one clearly stating TRF and LET are synonymous. This, according to Indian officials, is a sharp blow to Pakistan, which has consistently denied involvement and even managed to remove the TRF's name from an earlier UNSC press statement. We're now joined by retired Major General Shashi Asthana, who's a former Additional Director of Infantry. He joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us, Major General. How big of a development is this? The fact that the United Nations has recognized what happened on that day in April this year?
Certainly, it has vindicated India's stance. It has also shown how Pakistan was trying to play a false narrative and trying to dodge the issue by trying to deny their involvement. Let's put it in no uncertain terms that now that India has killed those terrorists as well, their identities are known, their identification numbers and their Pakistan identity is also known, and their linkages with LET is also known. So therefore, now Pakistan's drama of initially TRF accepting it and thereafter TRF taking the claim back that they have orchestrated the Pahalgam attack, that I think becomes null and void. So I think it certainly gives the credentials to what India was saying, and also justifies the Indian action which followed in Pakistan to destroy the terror camps and to destroy the terror infrastructure in Pakistan.
Yes, indeed. What do you think the UN member states' attitude is going to be towards Pakistan's supported terrorist cells now? The member states were told that the UN said the attack was not possible without Lashkar-e-Taiba's support. What are your thoughts, Major General?
See, I think all member states already know that it was not possible without Lashkar-e-Taiba's help, and Lashkar-e-Taiba, in fact, it was masterminded by them and the ISI of Pakistan, although the second part, that is the involvement of ISI and Pakistan military, UNSC may not be very keen to accept that, but Lashkar-e-Taiba link, I think UNSC would be able to accept that, but we do not expect too much from UNSC for the simple reason, because Pakistan is heading UNSC in their rotational capacity, and also the fact that there is China there, which is helping them in diplomatically when it comes to facing the ire of the global organizations on terrorism. So we do not expect that much from UNSC, but certainly it vindicates our stance, and it also tells the entire world that what India did was the right thing. And we also maintain, as was mentioned earlier also by us, that Op Sindoor is not yet over, in a manner that if they try to do a similar thing again, they will get a similar, maybe a tougher response hereafter.
Yes, thank you very much, Major General, for joining us on the programme. Pleasure to get your insight. Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.